I'm just making sure that we are all awesome. Okay. 2. Welcome back, everybody. It's the 568 Ranking Show. I'm Jackson Bast, and today I am also joined by Coach Bailey for this first part. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and as I'm going to wait for this timer, every 5 minutes we're going to start releasing the amount or the weights. So in about 5 minutes, I'll release the first weight. We're a little behind schedule because of some technical difficulties, but first off, Coach, how's it been at Mountain Brook?
Oh man, it's fantastic. Love it there. Kids are great. Coaching staff's fantastic. It's what you want to go to.
So you're happy you made that move over from Auburn?
Yeah, it's like coming back home. I mean, I'm from Hoover. I graduated from Hoover. My dad went to Mountain Brook, so it's kind of neat to kind of go to coach at the place my dad went to high school at. Coach Ransom comes to Coach Field. They're fantastic. Coach Eves, the athletic director, was my coach back at Hoover, so it was a really good fit for me.
And are you working with both the high school and the middle school programs?
No, I'm only at the varsity JV room
Okay.
at the high school right now. We have Coach Crocker from that used to be Homewood's head coach is our middle school head coach now.
I did hear that. I wasn't sure if maybe you had. I was going to ask you what it's like having him as your middle school coach and how he's kind of been with the kids. Of course, he's there at Homewood for. I think he's been there for 30 years, but I think he was the head coach starting in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And have you got any experience watching him coach or anything?
Oh yeah, I mean, anytime you get a guy who was I'm pretty sure he won a state title at one point as far as like a coaching goes. But anytime you get that kind of mind in your middle school room, in a couple of years you're going to see that pay dividends in our program. Not to mention also getting to work close with Ironclad all the time, and then you have a pretty stacked varsity coaching staff room with multiple guys who were head coaches or are head coaches and wrestled in college and all that stuff. So.
And kind of how's your season been going?
Pretty well. We won the Spartan Invitational, which is our tournament with teams like Arab was there, Scottsboro was there. You had some other 6A, 7A programs in there trickled in. We've pretty much placed pretty high in most of the tournaments we've gone to. We haven't really got to wrestle other than our own tournament. We haven't really seen our full varsity line. Plus, we're still trying to stabilize some weights. So you're going to see some guys that probably are drifting in different weight classes from where we were. But we're, gearing up for dual season, hoping to make a pretty deep run as far as that goes for us. So that's kind of like where we're sitting right now. I mean, we've got multiple state champs, multiple tournament champions right now, our 106, 1-1. You've got Gray Ortiz, who's won any tournament he's been in so far for us, including the Gulf Coast Clash. We've got multiple placers in big tournaments like that. So we're pretty excited about where it's going. We've got a great senior class of some really solid seniors that are kind of like leading the way. Then we've got some really young guys that like stepped into the lower weight classes and even higher weight class. Our heavyweight was a true freshman and stuff like that. Now, of course, we went pretty deep in the football playoffs, so we just got those guys, and they're getting their bodies conditioned to wrestling. And then, we're getting our plus 2 pounds. We're excited to see what this team's going to look like. We get to go wrestle this week in Georgia, so it'll be pretty solid. We won't have our full line because of the holiday travel, but coming right back, that should be a pretty solid look at where we are.
And that's the Eagles Landing tournament, right?
I believe
It's in McDonough, Georgia.
No, I don't think that's the one we're going to. We're going to, I guess it's a high school that Coach Ransom is close with. We're going to the tournament with them.
Have you guys gotten to see a lot of the out-of-state competition this year?
We saw some at Mobile. We had a Georgia school at our tournament. We feel like we've seen a few teams from Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. That's about it.
Well, it actually looks like it's time to announce the first set. And you mentioned your 106. He's actually caps out and rounds out the top 5. I know you can't see this, and I feel kind of bad. But number 1, we have Jackson Unger from Athens. This kid, he's at the number 1 spot, mostly because of this big win over the he had a 9-4 win in his season opener over the Huntsville's Kyan Simon. And I know that if any of you guys know who that kid is, he's an absolute beast. Coming in at number 2, we have Noah Guthrie from Gulf Shores. At the number 3 spot, the youngest, not quite the youngest, but I think he's number 4 out of the 5 Poe brothers, DeMarcus Poe. Then at number 4, we have Wesley Miller from McAdory. And then rounding out the top 5, we have Stephen Springfield. So I'm trying to dissolve that. Coach, kind of talk to us about your Stephen Springfield. When I was doing my little roundup with all of the things, I'd never heard of this kid before, but he's had some pretty significant wins this season.
Yeah, he actually came in to the season. He's a freshman. He wrestled a little bit in middle school, but it was one of those guys you look at and you're like, wow, he is really strong for his age and size. And it was kind of like if the technique catches up to him. And 106 was one of those spots that in our dual team, we were kind of like, I don't know where we're going to be there. And he has just, the last couple of tournaments, just come out on fire. He didn't get to wrestle in the Gulf Coast Clash, which we know came down to McAdory and Gulf Shores 106s. But then they were both at Pelham's tournament right after Christmas break started. And actually, Stephen beat Guthrie in the semis and then beat the McAdory kid in the finals. So both on points. But that was pretty huge wins for him, especially on his, it was both third period match points, getting up there. I have not seen the Athens kid wrestle yet, but I've heard a lot about him coming in, and I'm trying to remember who did you say the other one was?
See, I just had it. It was, the Poe from Gardendale.
Yeah, and I know Steven has wrestled the Poe, and I believe he lost on points, but that was early in the season as well. So I'm interested to see. It'll be I think 106 is going to be pretty interesting because I think McAdory, he's a junior, but everybody else is pretty young, ninth graders, mm-hmm. Even in middle school. I think there's a couple of them. So it'll be interesting. I'm like you, we're bigger boy wrestling. So watching 106 is doing the pretzel thing is just it's hard to watch for me because I'm just I don't get this. How are you doing that with your body, contortion wise? So.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that, and when I did the rankings last year, it was Bradley Williams from Spain Park. I put him around 106, 113, and his dad was like, "You heavyweights don't know how to rank. You don't know how people grow. You guys have always been big."
Yeah.
But no, and seriously, I think that's one of the coolest things is you'll see so much those guys will probably not be at 106 after this year.
No, I mean, it's always worried to me. I guess I'm in the new school of thought where, in off season, I want you eating and growing as much as possible, and in season, you should just be maintaining that weight that you're kind of comfortable at. And I really I hate to see, especially the 106s, 113s, even 120s. Those are hard cuts on the body, and you want those kids being able to eat and grow like they're supposed to, and not necessarily feel like they're hurting food wise or they're really strapped down. Now, some of those guys, they could eat literally everything and they're not going to gain a pound. I've seen that too. But a lot of those 106s, that's a hard cut. I always think about it you and me, when I think about losing weight, if I'm at 200 and I'm 2 pounds, that's nothing. I just don't eat tonight. And I'll sleep it off. I'm 106, that's 2% of their body. It's a little bit different than if it's us, but we're sitting there that's just it's like a deck chair off the Titanic for us.
I don't think I've ever. Let's see. When I started wrestling, I was probably 152 pounds because that year I also did football, and they had to take the yellow circle and put it on the back of my helmet because they said I couldn't be anything but no lineman. And I think, as a big guy, I don't think I've been through a lot of discrimination, but I would say that's probably the biggest. You can't.
Oh yeah.
You're labeling. You're like labeling out the kid. Oh, he's too big. He can't play any position.
Yeah, you're like, I was born to be a wide receiver. That's not fair.
Yeah, you don't want to see these feet move that quick. And you gotta call me Mike Evans at 5'10" when Mike Evans is like 6'7". That's absolutely crazy. And it's actually time for our next weight up at 113 pounds. We have number 1, Brody Christmas. Number 2, John Duncan. You guys might not recognize that. He's from Pike Road. It was Heinz Duncan and many other brackets. Number 3, we have Raymond Lozada from Elmore County. Number 4, Preston Jones from Alexandria. And number 5, Arius Clark from Moody. Coach, have you seen any of these kids in any of the tournaments? Obviously, Brody Christmas, well known. He won the 5'6" title at a very deep 106 weight last year.
Yeah, he's very good. I mean, like if he's at the 113, 115 mark, that's a tough number 1 right there. I've seen Duncan wrestle. His dad was head coaching Huntington, so they're going to be really good. His brother was really good. Is still really good. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the Moody kid. That Moody kid is one of those kids that when you go out there, I mean, his athleticism is what just blows you away. I mean, he was still taking shots in the third period that I was like, man, I can't imagine still like blasting doubles like that as much as he does. But that's a good room in Moody to be in. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like he's getting a lot of good coaching, and you add that to his natural athleticism, like he's really good. That's the kind of kid that you're hoping that the motor breaks down so that you can like try to catch him, and he just doesn't stop. So that's a hard kid to wrestle.
And like you mentioned, Moody. It's funny that you mentioned the Moody coaching thing because I knew that before this year, I don't think they had a head coach that was supposed to be until they had. I'm trying to remember. Danny Vasquez. He wrestled at Moody a couple years ago. I think they have a school sponsor, but you're right. You got Ryan Summerlin. You got Corey Land in that room, and it's a tough room to be in. But that's where you get a lot of these Arius Clarks who round out that top 5 because they're getting to wrestle with a lot of these guys. And I think Mountain Brooks kind of had some of that. I mean, I don't know how good Woody Phipps would be if he didn't have a Gray Ortiz.
Oh yeah, I mean, you talk about like you look at our weight classes at Mountain Brook. I mean, you're talking about you go our 126 to about 170. Like those are all guys that grew up wrestling a weight class with each other, and then you get throw in the young kids, and they're getting their tails beat up on in the room a little bit. Like you got to get good. I mean, that's how it kind of goes. Like you get good or you quit, and like those guys are tough. And Woody's one of those guys. I don't even like wrestling Woody. Woody's probably more mean than Gray most of the time. And Gray will, at least lighten up on you. But Woody, I mean, he has no stop button. And I was like, well, you got to be that way when you're wrestling Gray every day in the room.
And I'm not gonna make you comment on this, but I've definitely seen some of the scrappiness of Woody because he was going toe to toe. I don't know if the score showed it against James Latona and the duel you guys had, but he took it to James.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's interesting. That's kind of been kind of like it's a culture thing for us at Mountain Brook, kind of like breeding that. We've started talking about hand fighting. One of the big things that we talk about with hand fighting is we want to hand fight down low. Like I want to be on that 2-on-1 wrist, try to put it on the mat. And I'm like, cool, like hit my head all you want to, bash me in the head, like that's fine. And I always joke around with Woody. He gets this cut like right here on his eye every match, and it bleeds like after every match. And I'm like, it's because you're sticking your head in there and getting it wailed on, and that's fine. Because like that's the thing is like keep your head in, close that distance, take your shots. But it's kind of like we call it weathering the storm. You just come in there through those hand fights and just get in close and make people uncomfortable. But those guys who are like the James Latonas and stuff like that, you got to have to kind of scrap in there. You make them uncomfortable, make them wrestle something they're not used to, and that's kind of like what Woody went with on that one.
Well, Coach, I have to thank you so much for joining me and letting me talk to you a little bit about your guys' season. Is there anything you want to say before I hand it off to my next guest?
No, not at all, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of the show.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, Coach. I really do appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. See ya. Okay, guys. Now I'm gonna give probably a minute or two before I end up getting over to my next person. But of course, if you guys have any comments, please drop them down below. It's what makes wrestling so good and how much it really matters to the people we have to talk about these rankings. I mean, this is just one guy's opinion, and you guys might think a little bit more. Like Coach just said, against Steven Springfield, had some wins over the other two guys, but Springfield had a couple more losses that held him back in the rankings, in my opinion. And as I try to work to get my next guest on, like I said, I want to thank all you guys so much for joining me, and I appreciate all my loyal fans. I know I've been taking a little bit of time off. I've been working with the sports information department where I wrestle at Bluefield University. And I'm hoping I can get my next guest on here in just a sec. And Sam, can you hear me, man?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I've got
How's it
Mr.
going?
Sam Sutton. Sam, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain, And you got here just in time for us to release our top 5'6", 120 pounders.
Perfect.
Number one at 120 pounds, we have Will Anderson from Athens. Number two, John Stewart from Scottsboro. Number three, Cade Dunn from Arab. Number four, Ethan Caldwell from Jasper. And rounding out top five is Caleb Wright from Mortimer Jordan. Sam, you have any way to comment on any of these guys?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I trained with Will all summer, and he's just a hammer. He just keeps going, and he's huge for that weight. So he's gonna do great. And I think all those guys line in pretty well. I saw Ethan